Hey everybody, this is Adam from V-Speed Garage back again, and today we're looking at my 1987 Audi Coupe GT. Alright guys, so like I just said, this is my 1987 Audi Coupe GT. We'll do a quick walk around of this thing and tell you a little bit about these cars. They're very, very rare, unique, interesting cars. And this one was a steal. I found it on Facebook Marketplace. And this car has 66,000 original miles. It's 33 years old, so that means an average of about 2,000 miles a year. It's a two-owner car. Now I'm the third owner. And the first owner was an old lady. She drove it the majority of its life. And every single service item that she ever needed done was done at the local Audi dealership, including things like wiper blades. She would take it to the dealership to have done. So this car was incredibly well cared for, at least by its first owner. The second owners were a father and son. They did a few things to it to kind of keep up with maintenance. They did some window tint, which you can see on the windows here, and then the kind of top eyelid or whatever those are called on the front windshield. And it really does kind of clean up the look of this car, especially the tint on the sides. But they did a few other small items like injector seals. They did the timing belt and water pump as well. And there are a few things this car needs, but overall it is almost entirely original. And I picked it up just a few weeks ago. The only thing that I have done to it is the exhaust. It was missing its kind of second muffler. Let's see if we can actually get down under here. So right now, the exhaust has been basically replaced all the way from the midsection back with a stainless steel exhaust, and then I just put the tip on here the other day. But I had this done at a local shop called the Muffler Shop here in Rochester area, and they did a fantastic job, very reasonable pricing, and I think it sounds good and it should hold up quite a while being stainless steel exhaust. Man, this car is incredibly rare. I did some research on how many of these they made and sold in the United States, and this is kind of the base car for what the Quattro was. The Quattro had all-wheel drive. This is just a front-wheel drive vehicle. This has a 2.2 liter engine, I believe. This one is the 110 horsepower variant. They did make a 2.3 liter 130 horsepower variant in the later half of this year. All the coupes were essentially front-wheel drive. There were some coupe Quattros, which are extremely rare. Those are, you know, they didn't sell many of those at all. For 1987, they sold less than 2,000 of these Coupe GTs, and in total over this body style or this generation production run was right around 25,000 over about 7 or 8 years. So very, very rare, and of course many of them have not survived, especially in this kind of condition, to today. And this car, it is a time machine. If you go in here, the inside is basically all original. Need to do a little shampooing with the floor mats, but the dashboard doesn't have any cracks except for this small one between some of these switches. And this is an automatic. That is kind of the shortcoming of this particular car, a 3-speed automatic, which makes it a little bit slower in its acceleration, but it's a very smooth transmission, very, very sought after transmission because of how rare it was to get one of those in one of these. So this car, a bit more rare than the manual, but it is a 4-seater. Yeah, I think actually maybe a 5-seater. I don't know if they actually use that middle one, but there are 3 seatbelt buckles there. So this car has a moonroof. This can either pop up or be removed entirely, and then there's a spot in the back to put that. It does have a digital gauge cluster, which I'll show you in just a minute. And this one has power windows. It's got manual locks. power mirrors, and then manual seats and things like that. I think that was pretty much standard for the time, but really not too many options. This one didn't have the manual, like I said. It's got a power antenna and kind of the, I think, premium audio, which is not very premium by today's standards. But man, look at this roof line here. It's just straight. It's super cool in person. These tiny little 14-inch wheels, which I'd love to upgrade, but kind of planning on selling this car. I got it for such a good deal. I'm gonna try and make a little money off of it, I think, but I'm gonna enjoy it while I have it. So the car really doesn't have too many issues. The one was the exhaust. It was super loud and broken off, and so I got that fixed. The fuel gauge does not work right now, so I'm gonna have to figure that out. I've done a little bit of diagnosing, still have a bit more to do to figure that out. The power steering pump, I believe, just needs a flush. I think the fluid is either old or the incorrect type, and so I'm gonna try and get that done at a local shop. And then really the paint is in pretty good shape. It needs a really deep clean. This car was not washed, I think, for quite a while. And so there's some spots. I'll see if I can find one here. Yeah, you can see here where some leaves were like sitting on the paint, and they kind of like, some of the decomposed leaf is kind of like almost embedded in the paint. All right, here's another spot. But that should come up with a pretty nice, you know, buff and polish. The only issue with the paint overall, I mean, there's no clear coat peel. There's a couple scuffs and scratches here and there, a small dent right by the door handle here. You probably can't even see it really. Maybe you can see it, that angle. That's really it for dents. But there is this spot where we've got clear coat kind of peeling. It's just this area right here, and it's kind of, I believe there was maybe a little cut on one of these pinstripes, or a scratch, and it kind of led water to collect in this area. This car was not driven much. It had historic plates and was driven less than 500 miles a year for the past few years. It's a pretty cool car. I am gonna jump in. We'll take a look at that digital dash. A couple other things that I've kind of done since I've gotten it. Man, it's so quiet in here. My keys are the loudest thing. No push to start or anything in this car, obviously. Classic old chime. And it starts right up, and then you'll see straight away it's reading no fuel, and I've got the fuel range empty light coming on there, but luckily I can kind of get rid of that. This does have a pretty advanced gauge system. There's a trip computer and average speed, average fuel economy, time driven. You can set multiple trips, things like that. You can very easily change the clock, which is up in here. And this is a fully digital cluster. I mean, you can watch that go up and down as I hit the gas pedal. And then right here in the middle, we've got our Audi Dolby system cassette player, which I have a Bluetooth adapter for, which is pretty nice. This does have air conditioning. The belt is missing on the pulley in there, so I bought a belt and need to do that. In the Quattro version of this car, this would have the all-wheel drive indicators and the whole setup there. But this car has just the battery voltage and then your oil temperature, which is pretty cool. Window switches are right here. These two, kind of an odd position, actually very inconvenient for such a practical vehicle. Everything works in here. You can turn the stereo on. It's probably Amazon.com. Yeah, it works, and all the speakers work as far as I can tell. It's terrible sound, but that's to be expected. I'm gonna see if I can replace the speakers in here with something a little bit newer and nicer, just to make this adequate for the next person. I don't want to swap the stereo, though it's not that hard to do in something like this. Got a nice big glove box, which is held up by these straps. It's kind of odd. And cool Coupe GT badging right here on the dashboard. And then these seats are like a brownish color, just cloth seats, but in basically perfect condition. The only thing is this one has a little spot where they tested out the cigarette lighter on it, and then you can see somebody made a little mess down there. But if I get these carpets shampooed, I think it should look pretty much stock and normal, and the back seats almost completely unused as far as I can tell. See that kind of cargo shelf in the back with speakers built into it, and then the third brake light up there in the top of the window. But yeah, all the turn signals, lighting works, all these buttons on the dash, you know, hazards work and things like that. It's pretty incredible. Got this cool little pocket down here for storage of whatever you want. Power mirrors work, power windows work, and that's kind of the inside of this thing. Let's take a look under the hood. And so that kind of whining you hear is coming from the power steering pump, which I think the fluid is either bad or it's just the wrong kind. These take a very specific, I mean, they take an ATF fluid, which I think is pretty common for a lot of these Audis, but a couple years prior to this, they took a different type of fluid, so it's possible it does have that in there. The power steering works, it's just at low RPMs, it's real whiny, and especially when it's cold like it is today here in upstate New York. But this is a Bosch fuel injection system. I think it's direct fuel injection, or I'm not exactly sure. This fuel rail system's really odd. New battery in here. I might remove the valve cover at some point in the spring to paint this and clean it up. But when I got it, I basically, you know, washed out some of the dirt and grime, because this car really had just not been detailed or cleaned in a long time. But otherwise, you know, I think everything's going to clean up well. All the stickers are intact. There's just gunk and grease kind of everywhere. I mean, otherwise, I think this is a pretty accessible, easy to work on engine, other than what's over here. This seems like it's kind of all tied into the fuel lines and stuff like that, but everything over here is wide open. This is your radiator, and then the fans on the back side of this. It's kind of an odd thing. They really put these engines very far out in the front for the weight distribution and things like that. So we'll just drop this back down. But all the lights work. We'll turn those on. And it's actually got a light like indicator thing to tell you when it's dark and you should turn your headlights on, which is crazy. Those are just turn signals on the bottom, so they won't turn on. And then the ones on the outside are actually just reflectors. But in the back, all the brake lights work. The reverse lights are, you know, license plate lights. And we will pop open the trunk. That's where you release the trunk, right here. Super weird. This car is not a hatchback. As much as it looks like it would be, it is not a hatchback. And there's the old muffler that was broken off. Got our spare sitting there, some washer fluid, the manual that I purchased for it. But it's in perfect shape in here. I gotta figure out, this doesn't like to work, this power antenna, which I'm pretty sure they just go bad over time, so I'm gonna figure out if I can fix that, or just kind of live without it doing that. Fuel tank is right in here, and the sender unit is right here, so I've already taken that out to examine it, and it is pretty well corroded, but I tried moving it manually and couldn't get the fuel gauge to work, so trying to figure that stuff out. The kind of paint protection areas down there, you can see those kind of vinyl sticker sections. I'm gonna get some new paint protection pieces and put them on in the same spot, but those are shot at this point. They're just super old and have cracked and deteriorated. You can see it's spitting a little bit of gas, might be running a little bit rich, but I'm gonna set you down here and you can listen to the exhaust note of this brand new exhaust. Sounds pretty good. I think this is a 5-cylinder engine, which the sound is very hard to kind of dial in, but for these guys that did the exhaust, they did a great job for a very good, reasonable price. And I was gonna try and figure something out, but I can't weld, so it would have been kind of hard to do something. Yeah, this car runs great, it drives great, it's very quiet and smooth now that the exhaust has been solved, and just a few small issues to get it back to 100%. And man, this thing is rad. I'd love to take it to like a Radwood or something. I mean, there's just so few of these in the United States that are in this type of a condition, fully original, other than the exhaust. I mean, even these tires they're in good shape, but they're probably like 10 years old. But still have plenty of tread and not cracked or dry rotted or anything like that. And this thing is totally a time machine. I've got full paperwork from all the service and maintenance over the years, basically from when the car was new. I've got all the original manuals and paperwork in the original box that it came with in this car. Yeah, super cool car, very interesting and unique. And I mean, look at this. It's crazy. And this is with very minimal cleaning from me buying it. I did wipe down the dash and some other things, but I mean, everything works other than the fuel gauge, and the power steering whines a little bit. I mean, that is just incredible for a 33-year-old car that really has not been driven much over the last few years. Yeah, here's service records. This one's from 1990. A few years after this car would have been new. Man, what an interesting car though. And I got a great deal on it, and really hoping that I can make some money on it in the spring. We'll see. I may decide to keep it. Right now I've got 3 cars, and it's kind of hard for me to keep those all at the same time. I don't have a need for multiple cars. I barely drive right now as is with COVID, and I work from home for a good portion of the time, so not the most practical thing to have 3 cars. But if you enjoyed this video, you want to see more about this thing, please just comment below, like, share, subscribe, whatever you want to do, and we will try and make some more videos on solving the fuel gauge, making sure that we can figure out the power steering, things like that. But any general questions, just let me know. I do have the manual, which are, you know, not that easy to come by. You do have to buy them online. But if you have questions and want something figured out or want me to take a look at the manual, let me know. But thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll catch you next time.